I don't want you to be skinny. I want you to be strong. And I think that's a really important message. It's not necessary to starve yourself. The performance will be better if you feel yourself smart. In the end, it's not all weight related.
Hello everyone and welcome to this very special episode of Fuelin Sessions, and one that is going to exist throughout the year and for many years to come. And it's with great pleasure that I get to finally have Daniela on the show. Daniela, welcome.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be on your show. That I'm glad we could meet in Kona and now talk about nutrition.
Yeah, I think, look, it's probably well overdue to get you on here, considering we announced you as joining Fuelin and being part of the team, that you joined as the Chief Fueling Officer and otherwise known as, or affectionately known as, the Queen of Carbs, due to your ability to consume huge amounts of carbs when you were racing. Do you want to just give us a quick insight into why you joined Fuelin and sort of what you hope to bring to to all our athletes?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I joined Fuelin because I wanted to help people with their nutrition, athletes, but also everyone who wants to improve their nutrition. And I think my goal is to simplify nutrition. It is a complex topic, but also my view on it is also I try to make it simple. And also I would love to inspire people, live a healthier life, be active. And I think nutrition is a huge part of this, and you can really make a difference on what you put in your body it helps with your performance, but also how you feel.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that you're inspirational to men and women alike with the performances that you've had throughout your career. And I think, just a recap on your career for anyone who doesn't know you, which I would find very hard to believe, but five-time Ironman World Championship from 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 2021. And then a five times Ironman 70.3 World Champion. 2014, 2015, 17, 18, and 19. A hell of a run. I'm quite happy to refer to you as the GOAT. I think having two GOATs now as part of Fuelin is pretty spectacular, and I guess we're accruing a little herd now, you could say. But I think it's remarkable when I think of, and I'll just give insight into how we met. I sent Daniela a random Instagram message just going, hey, I heard that you have a nutrition degree and it would be great to connect. Obviously, Daniela didn't get back to me because I was a complete
I was busy
random
training,
Aussie.
so that's my excuse. No.
Coupled with being complete random Aussie, but also training extremely hard. It took a little while for you to get back, but you did get back to me eventually. And I mean, you said, look, I'd love to have a chat. And we finally met in Kona. We had a lovely dinner. We sat down, the team, and Jen, your beautiful girlfriend. And we came to an agreement on how you could be part of the company. And, I couldn't be happier. And I speak on behalf of the entire team at Fuelin. We are very excited to have you. So thank you for trusting us with, I guess, your namesake, because really that's what it comes down to. You're investing in us and investing your career and I guess your brand in what we're doing. So it speaks volumes to us.
Thank you.
In terms of like where you see yourself with, like, what is your mission with Fuelin and what you're trying to do with us?
Yeah, I think I definitely want to also help athletes. I think the fueling strategy, I mean, you're already doing a really great job. I think, I've been using the app as well, and especially now doing the transition to training less. It's also interesting to see how it changes. So I'm actively using the app, but I think also for people who don't know how to fuel for longer sessions, and I think especially the recovery part, I think that's something I used to do wrong. I would probably underfuel a bit on protein in my early years, and So that's a very good example on how great the app is to really just see, oh, I'm not feeling enough. And I think that's a really important message for a lot of people, that often we, especially athletes, they don't realize how much energy and fuel you actually need. And I think it's a really great way to track and also realize what your body actually needs. And then from that you can then learn, and yeah, you can change things according on of your needs. And that's why I love being part of Fuelin, and definitely also showing how much you can actually fuel. I think for the carb side, that's definitely, I've been lucky. I trained, or I worked with Darren Smith very early on in my career before the Olympics. And his wife, she's actually Australian, from
Yeah.
she's a nutritionist as well from the AIS. And she helped me a lot in my early stages to how to fuel for the short distance racing. And even though maybe the carb aspect there was a bit different, we had lots of testings. And so even though maybe my later career was not so influenced by testing, my early stage was very influenced. And I think that's why I could use that knowledge already early stages on when I switched to the long distance. And yeah, that's why I'm joining the team to help sharing these experience and what I've learned through my career.
Yeah, and I think, look, as we, with this series, as I like to call it, I think it is important at the start that we probably, I didn't actually mention that, but, thinking about this as a little bit of a series. With episode one, we're really just going to nail in about a little bit of the basics around sort of women and health and sort of female physiology, and get your take on that. And I think as we go through, I'm certainly excited to hear about your ability to consume large amounts of carbs. And I think a lot of female athletes are also going to be interested in that, and just how far in advance you were and where that all sort of came from. And I think you've alluded to that a little bit from that Australian dietitian. I think it's a really good segue, actually, that you talked about recovery there, and how maybe you underdid it at the start, and then maybe you learnt. But I want to sort of focus, at least for the next part, on the female athlete lens. And how did you use the female physiology to help shape your fueling in terms of day to day, and also within the sessions? Or did you just say, I'm basing it on what the research is showing at the moment, which is mainly dominated by males?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, I mean, I have two opinions on it. I think in one way, yes, you have to definitely, that's very clear. You have to listen to your body, and using your cycle, for it seems like for some people can be helpful. For me, I never really used it. And then I think the reason why is the psychology part of it. So knowing on this day I'm the strongest, and on this day I'm the weakest. If you have then the world championship on your weakest day, it's already a disadvantage. And that's why I'd never really even looked at it that closely. And of course you have to, during your period, for example, I always had day 1 and day 4 where I felt like a complete piece of crap. And also with stomach cramps and really bad, where I sometimes couldn't even move. So I think I didn't have to research on which were my worst days. I could feel that very easily.
Yep.
And so there, what I did is I tried to, the training was set. And when I realized, okay, I'm not feeling well, I tried to do the session, but just accepted that it be, might not be the best, but sometimes it even worked. And if you, for example, I would have stomach cramps that bad that I definitely also had to take some painkillers, even if I would just lie on the couch. It was really quite strong, and or still is. And so what I did is just worked with the timing. So if I had this 2-hour period where I felt these huge cramps, I would take a painkiller, and I tried to take the least possible, but like often once a month I had to take one painkiller. And And then I just waited for an hour, had a bit of food, and then I would do the session a bit later. And often it would be fine. So sometimes you have this little pull in your stomach, and you start the training, and then it goes away. So I think doing that in training then also helped me to be able to race with these conditions, because the thing is, yeah, like for example, 2015 was that day where I really wanted to win Kona. And on exactly that day, did have really bad stomach cramps.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I would have not raced or would have not won if I knew I could not race on that day. And I think it's in, yeah, like in high athlete performance is not always comfortable. And so if you really want to be a world champion, I think sometimes you just have to deal with your what you got. And that day I knew I would be suffering, and I did suffer a lot, but it was worth my first world championship title. And I think that was only possible because I also would train on these days where I didn't feel great.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the said principle, isn't it? The specific adaptation to implied demand. And I guess in your case, you prepared yourself for every possible scenario, including, unfortunately, racing at a period of time when you had extreme cramps. Do you felt psychologically the training and preparing your body in that gave you a bit of an edge on that day?
Yes, definitely. I knew I could train with having stomach cramps, so that, I mean, it's still not comfortable, but
For sure.
you know, it helps you to trust in your body that it's still possible. And I think I wouldn't suggest to always, when sometimes when you have such bad cramps, and then I had to lie on the floor. So I think some trainings I probably would ease off a bit, and also be, if it hurts that much, I think, yeah, then take a little rest or wait 2 hours to let it settle. And then the day is still long. If you're a professional athlete, you have the whole day to do your hard session. So then, yeah, mix it around a bit. But I think in the end, yeah, it's about that mental toughness, where in racing, it's, you don't have a choice. The race starts and you can't say, well, can you wait 2 hours? So sometimes you just have to deal with what you got in the moment. And I think that definitely helps then also be able to race in a moment where you don't feel like you want to race.
And it's exactly the same sentiment as I hear from Holly Lawrence, Sky Munch, Eloise Dillard. You know, all these athletes, female athletes at the top, they're not prepared to manipulate their nutrition or their training around their cycle, because ultimately, as you said, the world championship could fall on any day, and you need to be prepared for that. So I think it's always one of those ones, isn't it? The research, whilst it's interesting, is not showing clear performance benefits from women on the whole adjusting their nutrition or their training based on their cycle. And at this point in time, it just doesn't seem to be something that, you know, should be recommended on a wholesale sort of approach. Yes, I think, as you said, there's going to be women that really can't do it and they need to listen to their body. But I think as a starting point, it seems hearing it more and more from top performing athletes that not necessarily pushing through, but at least listening to the body and just going as much as you can seems to be the approach that seems to bring the dividends in the end.
Yeah, and also accepting that it is like this. I mean, it's like, also I definitely feel, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, like with, you said with the carbs, that some, you have that one part where you have easier, like you can absorb more carbs and then more protein. I think for me, I think also what I notice is, with having a bit of liquid in your body, that's also something where it's just part of who you are as a woman. And I think you have to accept that, yeah, some days you feel, maybe, I mean, I definitely feel maybe a change of 1 or 2 kilos during that time. And
You
it's
mean with
just,
fluid retention during
yes,
different
like,
parts of the cycle? Yeah.
exactly. So I
Yeah.
definitely, and so yeah, it's in the end, I always try to almost manipulate my brain, like saying, "Oh, if you have a bit more fluid in your legs, you might you might store it better." Which it's not true, but sometimes you can manipulate your brain as well in a positive way, even
For
if it's
sure.
not true scientifically. I think the mental part is also a huge aspect, and just accept how it is.
I got two questions for you related to your cycle, and you may not want to answer either of them. Did you ever lose your cycle throughout your career?
No, I did not. I think that's actually one really big advantage. I guess it sounds, or from maybe it's just because I was lucky, or I definitely try
Probably
to
because you ate a
fuel
lot.
well. Yes, I did eat
Yeah.
a lot, but there was also a time where I did not, and that was before the Olympics, where I would definitely say I was a bit on the edge. I was really restricting myself a lot, because I think it worked well for a year, but then also I realized it didn't work well for me mentally. Just because my I would say and I think a lot of athletes are a bit of an obsessive personality, because you have to be like all in and wanting it so bad. And when you overdo nutrition, it can be, or I mean, if you overthink nutrition, it can be very dangerous. And for that time before the Olympics, I was very aware of what I ate. I would like do really bad mistakes, for example, because I wanted to be in my race shape. I would, for example, reduce. I wouldn't eat anything that had more than 8% fat, which is totally stupid, because I would try to reduce fat, and just eat the least amount of protein which was necessary, and also didn't try to eat too many carbs. So I really was, I would say, in that phase, or I didn't realize it in that phase, but after I realized I did have a bit of a problem. And I think mentally it worked well for the Olympics. I had a good result. I think still now I'm super happy with my seventh place in Beijing. I think I was overperforming what I was capable of. So
Mm.
that's it was a good result, but very short term. And then I was really worn out. I felt also mentally. I did. I mean, after the Olympics, you can call it after Olympic depression. I put on, I think, 15 kilos in a month, which shows I had a mental problem at that time. And I think
How much had you lost going into the Olympics though?
I was around 57 kilos, where in my Ironman times I would raise around 5-6 kilos heavier. So
Yeah.
it was just, I mean, I was at the borderline of being, I mean, I was fit, but what it took me to get there was definitely not very healthy. So I think I just, from me overdoing things and overthinking things, I did it a bit too extreme. It worked short term, but then I definitely realized, okay, I couldn't, I think more mentally, I couldn't do it anymore. I had to ease off a bit, and I think that's where also it's an important message to women, and especially young women, that in the end you want to have a long career. And that's, I think, luckily I changed my nutrition after that, and I was taking a bit an easier approach towards it, to not be so extreme. And I think that's also why I could have such a long career, because after that I was maybe 2-3 kilos heavier, but I felt much better, and also mentally I was in a better stage. And then even later in my Ironman career, I would I was never, or I mean, you have to go to race shape, but I only was always in race shape for maybe 4 weeks just before Kona. Otherwise, I would always do a good break. That's, I think, one really important message. I think a lot of athletes now, they don't take any breaks anymore, and I've I always took 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes completely off. And I think even though you feel really bad after that, I think it helped me to have a long career. And I mean, I had 25 years. I mean, I would say 20 years pretty much professional. And I think mentally you need that break, but also your body needs that break. And so that's why, I mean, yeah, I think I always gave my body the time to just recuperate, everything like fill up. And then also in that time, I would put on a bit of weight, like maybe 5 kilos, but that was never a problem because it goes down again naturally when you start training all these long sessions. So I definitely, the 15 kilos was definitely too much, but I think five
15
is a
kilos
good
is quite
range.
15 kilos is quite the bounce. But it's funny you say, I mean, your experience with the Olympics is very similar to what Jan says as well, in terms of that extreme sort of body composition and focus on weight. And I just wonder whether there's, you're talking to two of the greatest athletes of all time who sort of are sharing their experience around the Olympics. I'm sure it goes a lot deeper than this, unfortunately, where you have an event and a sport that is trying to push, human performance, yet is it coming at a cost? Where athletes are really stressing their bodies and their brains to the point where it's causing some serious damage. And I guess we're thankful that you saw the damage that it could do, and you came out of that. And it sounds like refeeding and refueling the body, even 15 kilos, was definitely the right move, because as you say, it can always come back down. It's interesting you
Absolutely.
also say it's something I do talk about a lot, is this allowing the fluctuation of weight throughout a 12-month calendar. And I think it is something that, unfortunately, and I don't know if it's because of the way now with the T100 and the Pro Series and this constant need to race, are today's athletes, do they have the flexibility of what athletes like you and Jan had in the past? Are they able to take 4 or 6 weeks off anymore? Or do you feel the race schedule now is going to result in some of this sort of burnout?
I mean, there have been races in World Cups all over the year, always. So I think
Yeah.
it's about making a smart decision. And definitely, I'm very certain that you need to have a break. I think just because it is really hard, like what we do, it's really demanding on your body. And also it's not possible to be in your best peak for 12 months. So I always looked at it as, if I go down a bit, I can come back up with more momentum. And that's how it felt like, even just for the motivation, when you once realize that a 30 minutes jog is not easy, then you appreciate it much more again when you start feeling fit. And I think, yeah, you might not have to take 6 weeks off and completely. It can be being active on the mountain bike or go for a splash. So I think it's still, that's also what I noticed like through the years, that I wanted to keep moving or be active, but it doesn't have to be that 3 sessions a day where you just really demand a lot from your body. And I think with having the races all over, like full on, I think, yeah, definitely it changed. It's more competitive in March, but I mean, also in my earlier years to 15, I raced, or even Olympic distance, I raced in February, and even in January I had races. So I think 3 months is enough to get back up. And then also, yes, it's hard to use races now in T100, for example, where you're not fully fit, because the others will be, or especially the ones trained in Australia, are already kind of a step ahead. That's always how I felt. So that's why I went to Australia as well. But I think it's important to realize, okay, if you want to have a peak, or if you want to have a successful season, you might have to take in consideration that your first race might not be in your peak seat or peak shape. So I think it's using the races to get fit, but then, yeah, allow or plan it that you have at least a 3 months break somehow, or like in racing.
Well, it's periodizing your race calendar, similar to how we periodize nutrition. And then I guess that periodization of the nutrition is related to that periodization of the race calendar. And as I will always say to any athlete I work with, it's like no one remembers who wins the start of the season. it's only the end, and it's only the big races. And if you look at your career, I mean, you certainly got your timings right, I would say, based on the run that you had. So if I said to you, uh, if I knew then what I know now, what would you say to
Um,
yourself? Like, how would it change anything in terms of nutrition that you learnt late in your career that you wish you did earlier in your career, specifically related to you as a female?
yeah, I think in one way I would. I always say I try. I wouldn't want to change anything because everything you do, you kind of learn from it, and it's also sometimes the bad mistakes you do that hurt deeply. Where that's why you learn from them, and if you would not make that experience, then you wouldn't remember it. So I'm grateful for all the mistakes I did. I think, yeah,
What
maybe
was a
in,
what was a mistake you learnt a huge lesson from with regards to
well,
nutrition?
using sparkling water in Kona on the last aid station. That's,
I
I
thought Jan
mean,
said it was delicious
yeah, I
or
mean,
delightful.
yeah, it might be delightful, but I didn't have any calories in that aid station. And then I bonked about 2K after. So, yeah, in the end, I never did that mistake again. But yeah, you would want to keep the carbs high
Hmm.
towards all the end of the race. And I think, yeah, definitely the early stages, how important it is to, like, that it's not necessary to starve yourself to be performing well. I think that's definitely has been a hard message. And I think also the performance will be better if you feel yourself smart. And in the end, it's not all weight related. So that's, I definitely learned that through the years, through, especially when you want to have, I mean, it's in short distance as well. You have to be now also strong on the bike. And the longer it goes, the more important the bike part is. So you want to have that power. And if you lose too much weight, or if you don't fuel yourself properly, you're going to lose power. And that's just, you don't want that. You don't want to race with no power in an Ironman.
How long did it take you to sort of come to that conclusion around fueling and just how important it was to say, actually, I need to eat and I need to fuel because if I don't do that, my training is going to suffer. And if my training suffers, I'm not going to race well.
I mean, I think my coach Brett actually helped me quite a lot. Like when I started with him, he was like, I don't want you to be skinny. I want you to be strong. And I think that's a really important message. So I definitely, from when I started training with him, I started to eat more. In my early stages, I would eat always a lot. I think in the end, it's also a benefit if you're able to eat a lot, especially before the races or before long sessions. It can help you to just already have a good, how do you say, like a resource storage. And
Yeah,
especially
like
if
a
you go on a bike,
reservoir and
yeah, like if you go on a bike ride and you might feel a bit full in the first hour. But I always, like, the times where I felt where I couldn't eat, like for example, when I was nervous. So it was interesting that through the years, I started to be able to eat less. So before races, in my junior years, I could eat 400 gram of bread and a full jar of Nutella. And that's, I think it's already 2000 calories or two and a half. So if you eat that before the race, I mean, I ate that sometimes before a short distance race, So
good to
that
go.
was definitely maybe a bit too much, but I mean, I was doing well on for me. So I think that helped me. But when you then start to struggle before the race in the morning. I mean, I mean, everyone who's done a long distance race, having to eat at 3 in the morning, yeah, it's not the most amazing thing. I used to be quite excited about it. And then the longer my career went, the less excited I was about that morning breakfast. And there were times I could barely eat a piece of bread. And yeah, like if you look at this, it's actually a disadvantage if you can only eat a piece of bread. You want to be able to eat a bit more than that. And I think that's where I started to, yeah, just also having to almost sometimes push myself, like, okay, I have to eat more, I have to eat more. But yeah, I think we all know it. When you have nerves, it can be hard to eat. So that's where I also had to work with tricks. There was a time I could not eat bread anymore before race mornings, and so I started to use baby porridge. You know,
Oh,
the
really? Yeah,
baby
yeah.
food, yeah.
Yep.
And for some reason that went. So in the end, I think it's about finding out what goes down easy. That's where was my strategy. There was a time I only ate banana and Nutella in the morning just because that was the only thing I could eat. And so I think what my message
It's a
is
good
in the,
combination though.
yeah,
It
and
is a
also
great
just,
combination.
yeah, it's like, it's quite sweet, but
Delicious.
it's delicious. So find out what works and what you can actually get down and also hold down. I think that's sometimes the science says, well, you should have, you know, I mean, you can also have a carb powder, but to have something in the stomach is, I always wanted to have something in my stomach, even though, yeah, like if you have, it's important to have like low fiber, for example, but still try to eat something that in the end, if you can eat nothing, then just eat something at least that it can get down because it's a long
Well, it's
day.
funny. I mean, it's some of the feedback we get early on from a lot of athletes using Fuelin, where we're recommending a snack before a bike ride or a run, or definitely, I mean, we're insistent on eating before a swim and weight session. Definitely, obviously, athletes can choose for short duration sessions whether they want to do those fasted, and, again, individual preference. But it is funny with athletes where they're saying to us, I've never eaten before a run or an early morning bike. And then they might something as simple as a piece of toast with some Nutella. And they're like, oh my God, my bike ride was so much better. And you're like, of course, like you've got something in the tank. And then it starts that ball rolling. And then they start seeing a little bit better improvement in training and a little bit better power, a little bit better recovery. And it just starts to snowball, I think, in that sense. And I think, as you said, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to find what works for you. The science can be the science, but ultimately you have to eat the food. And yes, we can recommend certain macronutrients, amounts of protein, fat, and carbs, but it's never going to be exact. And I think, again, so many people get hung up on this. Oh, it doesn't exactly fit my macros. It's all right. Look, if you get a banana in and that gives you 25 grams of carbs and zero protein and zero fat, but that gets it in, carry the protein and fat across to a later meal. And then maybe gradually you have a piece of toast, which gives you a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, and a little bit of carbs. And as you say, you work it out over time, don't you, Danny? Like it's just a
Absolutely.
process that you have to go through.
Yeah, and I think what I really like about the suggestions is it gives you ideas, and I think that's where it
Yeah.
starts. You have to just sometimes, I mean, I have a lot of ideas, but sometimes on a lunch, I'm like, okay, what should I have? And you just that you're lacking out of inspiration, and I think that's completely normal. Like, or sometimes you're just busy and you're on the way, and you kind of have to be creative, and that's where there's I think in the end it's always about the choices you make, and we always have, and it's actually where it gets so tricky. We have so many choices, and still it's these little moments which I would say make the difference, and just having something to hold on, like some good habits, like having always some good crackers or nuts in your pocket can already be helpful. Like then at least you have something to go to, or an apple. Just I when I was in my studies, I just always had an apple with me, or actually no, I had a whole bag with me with food, so I should just grab something to eat. So yeah, just if you think like where are you going during the day and you don't know what you're going to be able to get, just carry it with you, and or have
Yeah,
something in the car ready when you get
I
back from
always
a
say
ride.
make sure you have a fruit bowl. I always say that to individuals when they're starting off, and it sounds so stupid, but it's like have a fruit bowl on your kitchen table, and every time you walk past it, grab an apple or grab a banana, and just start with that as a habit instead of grabbing a packet of chips or crisps. Start with a
Yeah,
banana, and as you said, it I know we will get into a lot more detail around, people always want to hear about protein and fat and carbs and what you did and all this. But yeah, if you had to say like 3 daily nutrition, whether we call them rules or tips for women who are training consistently, just something to leave them with, like as a starting point. Maybe it's around habits, maybe it's just something simple, like you said, having an apple in your pocket. What would you say those 3 things are?
Oh, that's a hard question. Um, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to simplify in nutrition, so it's a good challenge. I mean, I would say use fuel carbs before the session so you have energy. Find some kind of protein you can always carry with you. That can be nuts, or I actually like beef jerkies, or let's say, I mean, in Switzerland, or I don't know if you have them in US or in Australia, Bündnerfleisch. So it's dried meat, but it's a bit more soft
Like
than.
biltong? Like biltong?
No, it's even more soft. It comes in a package, so it's not, it can't. No, actually, it can last quite long as well, but it's not. I mean, with beef jerky, I'm always careful. It can be a lot of can sometimes have a lot of not so good things in it, but
Yeah.
there's good options. So have have a I mean, in the end, I think I would say, to simplify, have as much protein as you can eat, because it's
Okay.
very hard to overeat on protein unless you're. I mean, if you go 5 protein shakes a day, yes, you can maybe eventually get too much, but with real food, I don't think you can almost have too much. So eat
I
as much
agree.
protein as you can. And then I think then
Number 3.
in number three, in terms of health, is eat as colorful as you can. I think where the color lies is normally the micronutrients, where the vitamins and the good things are in it. And so I think with colorful is often also fiber because it's vegetables. And I think that would be the 3 things to go for.
And this is exactly why you are now part of the Fuelin team, because you pretty much nailed a lot of the principles by which we stand by. I mean, carbs are so important, and for athletes just to understand that. Yes, you don't need huge amounts all the time, but some carbohydrates at some point in time, and definitely before training, are key. Protein, whether you're female, male, young or old, it is so important as an endurance athlete. And then the final one, vegetables and fruits. Eat the rainbow, as we say, or eat the full color. And I think it's such an easy concept to get your head around when you have that variety of fruits and vegetables in your diet, your daily food. You will see the benefits. I have no doubt. And thousands of fueling athletes thankfully send messages saying that they've never eaten so many vegetables in their life, which I always get a real buzz out of, because it sounds so stupid and so simple, but I know that is ultimately changing people's lives for the better when they're reporting that. So yeah, I
What's your
love it.
trick? What's your trick to have easy vegetables?
Well, I tend to grill a lot. So I'll
Yeah,
do things like I'll just cut straight down the middle, like eggplant or aubergine. I'll just slice it in half, score it, salt, oil, grill it. Same with courgette or zucchini. I'll do that. Broccolini, broccoli. I'll do a lot of grilling and put either lemon or olive oil or garlic on it just to stop some of the charring.
nice. Yeah.
I tend to do that a lot. A lot of simple salads. So cost lettuce. I use cost lettuce a lot and then vary that. Simple things like just sliced cherry tomatoes with parmesan, shaved parmesan with a really good quality olive oil and balsamic. I'll tend to do that a lot. And then I put into Fuelin recently my go-to coleslaw, which is instead of using mayonnaise, use Greek yogurt. So to your point,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a simple way of getting a lot of protein in with a good quality Greek yogurt into something that, with cabbage, where I'm always thinking, okay, it is probably going to ferment. It is probably really going to benefit the gut in terms of that fiber content, but also the constitution of the cabbage. So, yeah, I think if you search, I think it's Scott's cabbage or coleslaw or something like that within Fuelin. I should get it, but I'll put it in the show notes. So yeah, look,
Nice.
I keep it very simple with vegetables, but we certainly eat a hell of a lot of vegetables in our family. It's something that I was brought up with, and I I think once you are in that habit, it's a very hard habit to break. when you don't have the vegetables on your plate, you're
Yeah,
sort of like,
you
what's
feel
missing?
yeah, you can
Yeah,
definitely feel also for the brain. I think you just feel not as awake.
I
I'm
agree.
going always with oven. Like if I don't know what to do, I just slice some vegetables, oil,
Stick them in
pepper,
the oven.
salt, and some paprika, and stick them in the oven. So
Yeah.
it's an easy way, and then you can go shower. And once you're showered, you have at least the vegetables ready.
Exactly. No, I love that. And look, I mean, the key takeaway here is, look, we've got a daily commitment as Fuelin and as the team to energy, health, and performance for race day and life. And I think that's really what we stand by as a company. And I think as we get into more of these shows with you, Danny, and just learn more about what you did on a day to day basis from a that day to day basis in terms of just general living, but then also that day to day basis of how you manage to fuel. When you say 3 hours, probably three was the minimum you were doing at any one time. How you actually managed to get through those sessions during them and then recover quickly and do more, I think it's going to be fascinating to hear. So, look, do you have anything else you want to say before we close off this session?
Um, well, that's I don't know. No, do you have a question? Or, yeah, of course I can say something. I mean, I'm. No, it's great to chat, and I think there's lots more to go more deep into it. Um,
Yeah,
we're
I'm
happy
looking
also to.
forward. I'm looking forward to getting more and more of your recipes. To be honest, every time you
Yes, I'm
you
working on
send
these.
you send
We
some
had
through, I think it's
Yeah,
great.
I Jenny had some really nice. She's very good in inspiration. So we did like a really nice. It's from Norwegian. Maybe you have. Maybe let's see if Christian wants to to try it. It's with shrimps and then dill
Yeah,
and with Greek yogurt, salt, and then lemon juice, and you put it. It's like this.
on
How
like
do?
crostini, like on a bread.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
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 with some
I know
salad.
it. Yeah,
Really
it's
nice.
delicious.
So
They
easy.
sometimes put some bottega or fish roe on top as well. They often
Yeah,
put that like the caviar, so it's very nice. Not for
yeah,
everyone, but it is
yeah. If you
fantastic.
have to like, but yeah, food is it's very personal. So yeah, I think it's in the end it's hard to make advice for everyone, but in the end, it's everyone can take what they want from it, and I think in terms of I would say performance side, there's some rules that can help to follow, and then in terms of preferences, in the end, it's always everyone's decision on how they want to mix it up for them.
No, absolutely. All we can do is guide them. As my dad always said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, on that note, we will say goodbye. And until next time, till we catch up again and go into episode two, I'll say goodbye, Danny. So, thank you so much for today.
Thanks for having me, Sot. See you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.